Hi, welcome to Cubs in Culture for January 19th, 2018. I swear I will get to Moonlight eventually, but I just rewatched La La Land, so I'm on today's for Culture. We're going to discuss La La Land. I want to first talk a little bit about the Oscars because, of course, La La Land and Moonlight are going to be forever tied together because of the massive fuck up by Warren Beatty in the Oscars where they read the wrong Best Picture winner. The other sort of thing is I feel like even though this movie won 6 Oscars for director, actress, cinematography, score, and song, and some other stuff, I feel like it was sort of held up as a token of a problem with the Academy, where a lot of people were complaining about this movie when it really wasn't about this movie per se, but it was like it was the one straw that broke the camel's back. It was just one too many examples of this type of film. Just so I'm perfectly clear about this, I love La La Land. Like Hacksaw Ridge and Hell or High Water, I think La La Land is a platonic ideal of the sort of musical form, which is one of the reasons why Moonlight's a very good film, but there's things that I would change about it to make it a better film, and there's literally nothing I would change about the other 3 films. Anyway, so the argument about La La Land is both sort of about sort of the way in which it bore the brunt of commentary against films is, of course, it's a musical set in L.A., and it's also, in sort of its directorial style, one of the great pleasures of this film is actually, it's sort of talking about movie musicals. It's actually, one of the reasons why I really like it is it's like a great MGM musical from 1950 was made from the 1950s was made in 2016. So there was all this commentary about Oscars overpraising or over that the only reason why they like La La Land was because it's a movie about show business. Excuse me. Show business, and they're kind of like a lot of those films have won, and that's true. I mean, just recently you had Birdman and The Artist, 2 other really good films. Then going back in history, you also have All About Eve and Shakespeare in Love, etc. But the thing is, even though that's true of La La Land, you got to realize that the Academy is made up mostly of the industry, so it's just sort of a natural consequence of having show business people vote on movies are the best of the year, that of course they're going to be drawn to films about show business. Again, if you have a group of philosophers make a list of the best films of the year, they're always going to tend to like films which are philosophical. The other sort of thing is, and I think this was sort of lost in the shuffle, is Moonlight itself is yes, it's the first gay film with queer content to win Best. Well, the first film which is a positive portrayal of queer sexual minorities, men who have sex with men, whatever term you want to apply to the characters in Moonlight. First film with positive representation to win Best Picture, and then of course it's also one of the all the cast members or principal cast members are black or people of color. So again, it's sort of in Moonlight's sort of about toxic masculinity in African American contexts, and it's sort of a social critique of that. Sort of toxic masculinity in African American communities. So it's a socially conscious piece. And the thing is, there's a long history of socially conscious movies also winning Best Picture. I mean, just recently you had The King's Speech, which, yes, even though it's about the King of England, it's mostly focused on class issues and speech therapy. And then you have like The Hurt Locker. You have Crash from 2005 or whatever. Going back in the history, you have Gentleman's Agreement, which is explicitly about sort of social commentary, because it's Gentleman's Agreement's about a guy who's not Jewish who pretends to be Jewish to write an article about discrimination. And then you also have, again, Driving Miss Daisy from '89 or whatever. So there's a whole series. No, not all of those films I mentioned are good films. And then, of course, something like Driving Miss Daisy in itself can be somewhat problematic in terms of the way in which it portrayed race relations. But it's not like the Academy. So, like, I don't, like, Moonlight feels very much like a Best Picture winner to me, and La La Land feels very much like a Best Picture winner to me. So at least as far as the content of the movies are concerned, like there's no real sort of difference between them. Now, of course, that the La La Land is very, very white, and Moonlight is not. So that's like, and this sort of goes back to some of the issues of representations. Like, I kind of feel bad for Oscars. Yes, they absolutely can do better jobs of uplifting films of people of color, or and all across the board, and acting and the technical so-called technical categories, writers, directors, etc. But the other thing is, if there's most films are very, very white even to this day. And so you can't nominate a performance that doesn't exist. And while there's always, every single year, at least one or two movies which center on people of color, which are really well made, it doesn't I feel sort of bad for the Oscars, because it's sort of a catch-22, is they can only select from films that are made, but their selections also mean those sort of types of films get made. So I think the problem with representation at the Oscars isn't just about what Academy members vote on. It's also about what they can vote on, what sort of movies exist. Okay, so that's sort of the political aspect. I want to be perfectly clear about this. I would prefer if Hell or High Water won Best Picture. But Moonlight, I think, is a worthy winner because it is a very good movie. I just happen to prefer La La Land. Okay, so one of the things that sort of bothers me about the way in which people approach La La Land is they just say, "Oh, it's a musical." Well, the thing, it's a musical. The Academy is always giving Oscars to musicals. I mean, Chicago just won. The thing is, and I'm going to be frank, I'm going to be a little bit frank about this. La La Land has fuck all to do with Chicago. It's an entirely different sort of movie. It's an entirely different sort of musical. So, a kung fu film and a superhero film are both action films, but no one would consider a kung fu film like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to be identical or in the same sort of conversation as like Captain America, Winter Soldier. But for whatever fucking reason, musicals are all sort of slammed into each other. So let me just quickly talk about this. In terms of the most recent sort of musicals, you have the first major one that sort of revitalized the genre commercially was Moulin Rouge. Well, the thing is, Moulin Rouge is a jukebox musical, which means the music is only one song is original. So the music, even though it's a musical, the music is stitched together, so it's quite different. Another sort of jukebox musical would be Across the Universe. And then the other thing is, Moulin Rouge is very much a style over substance story. Okay, then you have sort of the most recent Best Picture winner, which would be Chicago. And Chicago is a deeply cynical film where it's from 1970s. Bob Fosse is the original choreographer, so it's a very dark, sort of cynical film. In any case, the music comes from a stage show, so it's pre-tested, and the music itself is sort of Orwellian. The thing about La La Land is it's really the first uber successful musical. It was made on $30 million. It cost $30 million to make, and then it was like $400 million worldwide. It's really the first in a very long time an uber successful musical which doesn't have any sort of it's an original musical in the sense that it's like there's not a stage show that was La La Land beforehand. And then the other sort of thing is the movie is incredibly earnest and romantic, and it's very much like an MGM 1950s musical, which has fuck all to do with Bob Fosse-esque Chicago or the jukebox postmodern Moulin Rouge, but people group them together and they really shouldn't. Okay, I'm gonna pause here so I can talk about the story in the next section. Okay, Cubs and Culture out for a sec.